but people should be
I'm
able
sure
to hear
Rick
you
will be
now.
fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he'll
How's
be
it
fine
going,
without
everybody?
us.
If you can hear me.
And I
Well,
should pop up
yeah,
on the
Rick will be
screen in
fine
a
without
second.
us.
There we go.
He'll be able to
And,
stumble over his own
hey
words.
everybody. I haven't done this in a while, but welcome to the
Hey,
Hypogeum, which is my one-on-one interview show ran over here on the Vomitorium family of shows. And joining me today is Timothy Olson. Olson? Elfin.
Olson.
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 I don't know
It's
why my
it's
tongue just
Norwegian.
decided to slide against my teeth like that. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm great. Back in the on the campaign trail where I really like to be.
Yeah, yeah. That's good to hear.
Promoting my comic book.
Which is
Yep.
what we're mostly here to talk
Uh,
about today. I mean, you in general, but you're here because you have a
yeah.
project, and that's what we do on this channel. Projects, passions, whatever. And your comic is called Melvin, if I am correct. I know I am because I have it right in front of me, but I like to
Yes.
sound fairer than I am.
And you've heard about it many. You've heard about it many times.
No, this is absolutely the first time
I'm a
I've ever heard
shameless
of your
shiller.
comic.
Don't lie.
Yeah. So usually for the first block, this is the introduction section. So why don't you tell people a little about yourself
All right.
and a little about your project?
Okay, I am a comic book creator. I've hired my artist, who's a fantastic artist, Sherwin K.O. Sains, and I have hired various other people to do covers. My comic book is Melvin. She's a mercenary hired to save a princess from a dangerous cult on a faraway planet. It's very sci-fi fantasy, kind of like that mixed with those '80s action flicks that we all used to love and watch. So lots of mindless violence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everybody loves mindless violence. Well, everyone with a good sense of humor likes mindless violence. There's a lot of people that for some reason hate it. I
If
don't get what
everybody,
goes through their head. It's not like real people are dying and
if they
getting
were,
injured.
no, if they were only honest with themselves, they admit they like mindless violence in their entertainment too.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Either that or they think they're better than everyone
So
else.
yeah, I can't figure out people. Don't try anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So is that all you wanted to say
So
about your introduction before we get into these questions I have prepared for you?
that is. Oh, I don't because I don't want to give any spoilers, but there is a twist in the story. So when
Okay.
people actually get the book, yeah,
Well, I have a
you
lot of
know,
very
you,
open-ended and vague questions, so you can feel free about how much information on each you want to give, because, I'm somebody who, I don't like spoilers myself. If I jump into a story, I kind of want to go in blind. Twitch, I don't care what you care about
yeah,
that word. I like to go in blind and kind of just explore and discover the story firsthand, you know?
yeah. So well, I mean, here's the thing. People want to know every single detail of your universe, and when you buy a first issue of a comic book, like let's say X Force or whatever, you don't get all the information right away. It usually expands throughout 4 pages. So
Yeah.
4 issues. So if you want to find out what happens next issue, you have to buy the next issue.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well, and
know.
spoilers for the audience. Tim and I know each other. We've actually been talking over the last, was it a few months or so now that we've known each other? Since whenever you've been on
Yeah, I
Cross
think
Comics channel.
yeah, since like what last year? Well, now
Maybe.
last year.
Yeah, oh, actually, it has been a whole year now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Man, time both flies and feels like it's going forever during this year. It's like you can't gauge any amount of
Oh yeah.
time. I was thinking like maybe it's been a
Oh no.
semester, but it's like no, it's probably been about a whole year now.
Yeah, I found my degenerate misfits and
Yeah, yeah. But so
yeah,
because I was going to say we've actually talked about this quite a bit in DMs, and I've given you some clues about what information you can feel free to hold from people asking for the sake of spoilers, and what type of information is
yeah,
pretty good to just give people. So because fleshing out the world is a good way to sell it to people. and you don't want to give them too much, but you also don't want to hold too much away too. You want to. It's almost like giving some slack on the fishing line so that the fish doesn't just like give up. You know, you kind of reel in and out until you finally get them in. Yeah. So you kind of have to give them a little bait.
Yeah. They tried to do a sneak attack on me on Piper's stream where they, well, how did they get the name Melvin? I go, well, that's not really critical to the story right at this juncture, is
it? yeah. But I'm just prefacing this so you know, because you have my DMs from before, what I'll expect you to answer from, because I've already given you like an idea of what is good information to give people.
Right.
Yeah. So let's get into.
Of course, you remember all John. All right.
Yeah. So this block I call the up and up, and this is where we actually will discuss the things about your project. So the first question is, what are the inspirations for this project, and where do you draw your ideas from? Which you already mentioned, like the 80s action flicks, but let's get into the nitty gritty about that.
So many influences. When I was a kid, I was a big, early Image comics, Rob Liefeld, Sam Keith, Peter Laird, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. For all those who don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and also, let me direct this question a little bit more for maybe the people listening who maybe don't know too many of these people's names, because I'll tell you, I didn't even know most of the names of the people who created the comic books I read until I got closer to being an adult. I just never bothered to look at the credits,
I was one of those weird kids. Like most kids wanted to be a football star, a rock star. I wanted to be a comic book artist. Those were my gods. Rob Liefeld.
See, I always wanted to be a comic book artist too, but well, at one point in time in elementary school, I wanted to be a comic book artist. That came back and forth several different times. I'm always jumping around what I want to be, but my thing is, I don't care about the other people. I'll just do what I want to do.
Well,
But everybody's got their, heroes and stuff.
I used. Yeah. Edgar Rice Burroughs. Ever since that John Carter movie, I got a collection of the John Carter books.
Yeah.
In my,
that actually, more to what I was directing it. John Carter is a good example because people know the story. So let's talk what stories influence. I saw looking at the pictures, it seems like a very Rambo meets Conan type situation, right?
That's First Blood, Rambo First Blood, Conan, like the Conan movies that had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, or more like Kroll. No one remembers Kroll. Or like more animated movies like Fire and Ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely getting that. Yeah, those are all good things to pull from, for sure.
Yep. And also music, because ever since I saw Heavy Metal 2000, Transformers the movie, where the soundtrack was a huge part of the story too.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that one where Megatron kills everybody on the spaceship, and they play that the music just kind of amplifies the emotions of the scene, right? It's just
it's the ambiance, it's the atmosphere of what's going on.
Exactly. Oh, Titan AE, I like that one too.
Oh, that's such an underrated movie.
I know. But the soundtrack, even though some of it was kind of cheesy, it actually worked well with the movie.
Yeah, because it's kind of got that. I think it was in the aughts already, but it still had that '90s vibe to it, just the way space and action films were made during that time. It's got there's almost points that feel romantic, despite the fact that this is a hardcore grungy space film, And it's the music is what carries those emotions there.
And Like I said, even though I kind of felt like the first heavy metal movie kind of had just like random stories here and there, and they tried to tie it together with one thing, and they just like you could just tell it was different stories from different magazines of heavy metal magazines. So the music, not necessarily heavy metal, was still pretty good
Yeah, yeah.
because you time it just right, and it works just so well with the scenes you're looking at.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. So, this leads to the next question. Almost. What made you want to create this story in particular? Or stories like this?
Well, there's been many different. Melvin was thought of when I was in middle school, and there's been kind of an evolution. It used to be as a kid, so I was like Melvin the Teacher Slayer because I hated my teacher so much. Something stupid like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then just like no direction, and then like I kind of took the story and reworked it and added pieces like a little bit of the influence from like Gladiator and what else? And then of course the John Carter movie and whatnot,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of use parts of that to kind of change the story. But I wanted to bring back more action-packed stories where there's a story, but there's also a lot more action to make it exciting.
Yes. Speaking of Gladiator, I think that's a good example of that because there is a very strong narrative going throughout that whole movie. But instead of like making you sit through the whole narrative the whole time, it breaks it up with like random gladiator fights that in a way also add to the narrative because he builds camaraderie with some of the different gladiators that he meets.
Yeah.
So it's a really good story structure.
My favorite scene has to be when he reveals himself to the emperor, and the emperor just kind of totally starts tripping, right?
Yeah, it's
you
like,
see how freaked out. Oh God,
shoot!
I killed.
That dude I've known my whole life that I betrayed.
Yeah. Was that Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, it was Joaquin Phoenix.
The emperor.
Yeah, he was
Comicus,
great
yeah.
as Commodus. Yeah.
Oh, he killed it. So yeah, stuff like that. I also was a big fan of the Spartacus TV show. Also like Clash of the Titans, these big epic stories, epic storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But I find modern day comic books have gotten too boring.
Yeah, I agree. Because like the one thing you should do if you're making a story is it should be fun. That doesn't mean it has to be lighthearted, but it means that whoever is engaging in it has to be enjoying themselves. So you got to evoke emotion. It has to have action. I think manga is a really good example of this because they could take something as boring as like tennis and turn it into like a battle shonen comic because they turn the tennis match into a battle, right? So you just got to like take whatever you're doing and you have to make it as thrilling as possible.
I have to say though, the thing that makes it manga or anime interesting is also the very thing that people make fun of manga and anime for.
Yeah.
They don't just uppercut somebody like on their back. They uppercut them way in the air.
Yeah. It's over the top, You got to dial everything up to 11 Spinal Tap style.
Yep. Or Dragon Ball Z when they always seem like they're having that inner dialogue, but they look constipated all the time. Like,
oh, you really know what emotion they're feeling, though, right?
Yeah. So yeah, but I find more, especially Marvel and DC. I think they've. I don't think they're going to find their way back.
No, not the way they're going.
Yeah.
But as the name Hypogeum means, it's the underground. So welcome to the underground. It's better here anyway.
Yeah, you should make that your slogan.
I should.
The Hypogeum. It's better here anyway.
Yeah. So, it leaves room for the next question. what I don't. I'm assuming Melvin is the main protagonist. I don't know if you have any others. So this is kind of
Yes.
open ended. What is or are your main
Well,
characters like? Like the personality, behavior, interests, relationships, desires, things
Melvin?
like that. Well, Melvin, and
Melvin
if
is
there
all
are,
about
whether you want to disclose that or not
yes,
yet, you could talk about the
yes,
other characters too.
yes. Well, Melvin's all about the job. He's there to do a job, get paid, and then he's gone. He's lost everything. This is all he has left. So he's all about getting paid and going.
Okay.
It's
So
just
he's
a
very
job.
much similar to like a Rambo or a Samus Aran type character.
Yeah, yeah. And Alice, the princess, she is very headstrong. She does what she wants to do, even though she's told what to do all the time. Her life is very controlled, but she's defiant.
Okay. And so those are the two main characters of this story that like are kind of driving the plot forward.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Well,
And then you
being
got
that though,
our.
because
I meant the right. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say because this is very brief descriptions, but they're good ones. What drives them, right? Because they're going to be driving the plot, but if he's got nothing left, and she just kind of wants her own thing. What are like the desires that push them to where they're going?
Well, there when he finally this is a little spoiler. I have to kind of do a spoiler now.
You don't have
When
to.
he finally catches it, well,
Walk
I'm not going to
around
tell. I'm
it.
not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he finally catches up to her, he finds out there's something they didn't tell him about her,
Okay.
and the point is that she didn't tell them. So basically, there's a whole he gets kind of frustrated because like, wait, they didn't tell me about that you could do that, and she's like, well, I never told them. So
Okay.
that so that's I don't want to kind of give it away, but
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to give anything away. It's just like characters have even vaguely. There's usually something about their personality, maybe in their past or maybe even in their present, just the person that they are that kind of pushes them in the direction that they're going. It's like a philosophical thing. Like, why do they do what they do?
right, right. And well, I mean, I kind of want. She's like 24, but that she kind of still acts like a teenager. She's stunted in her thinking.
Uh,
She still thinks like a teenager, kind of, because
so
she's
usually
never
expect from like
her life's
royalty
been
because they're like
confined to one room.
spoiled.
Yes, that's another thing. So,
Okay.
and then of course the villain Arjonas is this. He's basically he's a zealot. He wants to sacrifice as many people as he can to appease his god Azarka.
Okay, okay. That's a good driving passion right there. That's the type of answer I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So you got somebody who has like this religious fervor, who actually is pushing him in the direction of doing what he wants to do. He thinks he's doing the right thing because that's what his god demands
Yeah.
of him.
Right.
Yeah, see that's where the philosophical edge of your story comes. It's like this guy believes he's in the right. That's good. Yeah.
They're so into their like kind of like it's kind of a mix between Buggies and the Spanish Inquisition,
Okay.
because as you can tell the design of the character is kind of reminiscent of the main bad guy from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The helmet.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good dark story right there.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. I kind of felt like the first issue should be just an introduction comic book. Like, here's their world they live in. This is kind of the big tip of the story, the beginning of the story.
yeah, yeah. I usually you should do that. It's almost like the first chapter of a book, right? And coming from a creative writing background, if you're looking at it novel-wise, you've got like a tiered process for hooking people into your story. You have to hook them with the first sentence, and the first sentence has to get them to read the whole first paragraph. And then that first paragraphs have to be written well enough to get people to read the entire first page. And if you usually hook somebody by the first page, then they'll want to continue to read at least through the whole chapter. And if they invest in that whole chapter, they're probably sold for the rest of the book. It's kind of like with TV, why like the first episode is such a critical point for hooking people into the story, and the first issue of a comic is kind of the same way too.
Comic books are a little different. You have to have the artwork has to be catchy enough to kind of hook people.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you can't, like, you could have these beautiful pieces halfway through the book, and some people will flip through. There's an advantage that you can't just like flip through a TV show to see the different scenes, because you won't get the context and everything. Right. But you don't necessarily have to see the good art. In a comic, you can just flip through. It's like, yeah, I'll give this a try. It's not quite the same in that regard, but you still want that first page, and this is why the splash page is usually such a big thing. That first page has to be gripping enough that it makes somebody actually want to read the story.
Yeah. Well, I've looked over my pages, and I have a setup, and then a lot of action, and then kind of like towards the end of their before it goes on to something else. A moment when he actually catches up to her and they're both talking.
Yeah.
And then like there's a little bit of a three pages that kind of sets up something that's going to happen later on in the series, like maybe second or third issue, kind of stuff. Most likely third issue.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing too. It's like depending on how long your story is, because you kind of making promises to your audience, right? And the longer the story is, and if they know it's a long story, like you're writing an epic or something, you can take longer to set things up because people know they're in for a long ride. That rubber band can kind of like pull back slowly before it has to spring forward.
I mean, at least I know it's in the old, the 90s. The first story arc should be like 4 issues before you move on to either another story arc or just a standalone story.
Yeah, because you have to really properly introduce everybody to the world, which actually does hook up into my next question for you, which is, what is the world or universe that this takes place in like? Like, how does it play into or against the character's goals and desires?
Interesting. Well, I can tell you what the universe is like. There's many displaced. There's a lot of people from other planets that have, like for instance, Mars. Mars is no longer inhabitable, so Martians, they go live elsewhere. They what do you call that? The words in my head. I just can't
migrated
think of
or
migrate, colonize other planets.
Colonize, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's there's a lot like any place that the cult has gone to. You remember that movie? It's after Pitch Black.
Chronicles of Riddick.
You know how they're kind of the same thing. They go from planet to planet, destroying civilization.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the cult's like. So there's a lot of worlds that have been destroyed by this cult. They've torn the society from inside out, which is what happened in Halara. It was kind of like, first they turned the people against each other. They put idiots in charge of things. They dig up past wrongdoings, and say, hey, that group over there wronged you. You need to get even with those people because their ancestors did this, and this to you.
Yeah.
Right. And then they basically destroy the society from the inside out, and they get slaves, and they they continue on to another planet and do the same thing. I kind of thought about it after
they're
the
kind of
whole
harvesters
SJW
right?
thing. Yeah, that's what I kind of think about. Like, I kind of got the idea after seeing Social Justice Warriors go from one fandom to the next fandom to the next.
Yeah, they're kind of like they're like locusts in that way, right? They come in real quick. They look like they're going to integrate into the environment, but all they do is they just tear it dry.
Yeah, yeah. They've done it with video games, movies.
Yeah.
It's like anything people enjoy. I got to stretch here. um, I got the shoulder problem. Um, so that's where I got the idea from. So there's a lot of plants that are like that are just barren wastelands. There's a lot of jungle plants. There's a lot of farming planets, but like farmers are very competitive for area, for territory.
Yeah.
So they compete against each other, and they have like farmhands will be armed actually, and they kind of patrol the perimeter to protect the territory. So there's a lot of farming plants like that. Let's kind of give you an idea of what in my head what the universe is kind of like.
I'm just imagining like a whole planet where there's like half a continent's just almost a swamp and it's just nothing but rice fields for like hundreds of miles.
That's what I had in my head. Is just like maybe there's like a lake here or river there or something, but it's mostly just like farmlands.
Yeah, especially because rice would be very easy to like harvest, and then transport very long distances without having to worry about it going bad. You just have like half a planet just dedicated to growing rice for different cultures.
Yeah, something like that. It was just so it's like it's not really like a uniform galaxy. It's just like plants will have different stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Whatever I need for whatever story I'm writing. Yeah.
So it's a very open, like almost realistic spatial world where fantastic things could happen on the individual planets.
Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody's familiar with our actual universe, they shouldn't have any problem wrapping their mind away around how your universe is set up distance-wise and stuff like that.
Yeah. What I also what I'm trying to do is early days of Image Comics, like you would have like one of those flip books, right?
Yeah.
And that would be a way of introducing a new character. Or like the Wildcats miniseries, the first 4 issues before it became a ongoing series. Youngblood shows up, and that kind of establishes there's a universe there. There's a link.
Yeah.
There's a characters from completely other series in that series, or Chapel is Spawn's killer, so that's how you connect Youngblood to Spawn, and that's usually how I kind of got the way you should build a universe. You just make another story to connect this with.
Yeah. Incrementally, you build it up.
Yeah, like you see in my webcomic, I think the 4th panel shows Melvin knocking the guy out. Explains that Melvin, they were hired to kind of try to take Melvin out, so Melvin took out everybody in that space mining station.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way of building because you just have like these tiny little interactions that they're important, but they don't necessarily go anywhere. Like Melvin helps set this story up, but he's not inherently part of this story. It's just kind of like pushing you in the direction you're going with it.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking like so Image had back in the day had Supreme.
Yeah.
And he made an appearance in issue 5 of Bloodstrike where he just decimates the entire team. And see that connects that team with Supreme.
Yeah.
So if I think of another, that's how I. Yeah.
In fact, that manga that I made over the Summer Realms and Relics actually has 2 different characters in it that have appeared in my main comic, and I don't think anybody's noticed, and I'm not going to point it out to anybody, but they're there.
So you're taking your webcomics and kind of compiling them into one book? Different books, or?
Well, I mean, the way I started from the beginning was I was working on a world, and the webcomic is basically just the backbone for the world, and then everything else just kind of branches out of that. The stories don't even have to be directly branching out, but it's like, if you want to understand a concept about the world, you're probably going to see it in the webcomic first, and then you'll probably also see it in other places.
That's what I told Rick. I told Rick you should make because he's doing like these little 2-panel things. And if you want to explain characters or flesh out those characters, don't do it on your stream. Just kind of do a webcomic based on that character.
I've been telling him to make a webcomic for quite some time now. So good luck with that.
But he makes these like 1-2 He makes these 1-2 panel things that don't mean anything. Like maybe his shield gets beat up by a ape or
Giant
something.
gorilla. It's like, what is Grape Ape doing here?
I hope I am capable.
Okay, so this actually talking about your universe wrapping around to basically what you need it to be, right? It's almost like clay to be molded at the time. What stands in your protagonist's way? Like, I mean, you have your villain, but like not just physically, but philosophically, morally. Like, what is the biggest hurdle that Melvin has to overcome? And I already forgot her name, but the princess as well.
Well, I can tell you what she needs to gain throughout the story is.
I mean, you don't have to spoil anything, obviously, but you know, maybe there's a moral hurdle or a philosophical problem, like a conflict here that stops them.
Philosophical or moral?
Yeah, because I have a personal belief from a writing background, and I'll explain this while you think about it, that the best villains are not those who even necessarily counter your hero, but the best villains are those who come at you with a half-truth, right? So you think they're kind of right. They have half the truth ready, and it sounds like they're in the right direction. And then the resolution comes to the story. It can be physically, it can be through dialogue, it doesn't matter, when the hero comes with the actual truth. Getting rid of the half-lie. It's a writing mechanism, right? And most of the time the audience doesn't even notice that's what's happening. And I think the Joker in Batman is a very good example of a character having like a half-truth, which would be the Joker. And a lot of times it seems like the Joker's onto something. But then the Batman comes with like the actual truth and, you know, knocks him down.
I suppose the hurdle is that maybe just doing a job for a paycheck isn't always the he doesn't seem to like the paycheck matter more than anything, and he doesn't care about like what she feels like they should be fighting for.
Hmm. So his heart's
because I was going to do a
he's doing.
Yeah, like I was going to have in the second issue, I was going to have them have a discussion, and she realizes he's pretty good at fighting. He could help her people get rid of the cult, and he's like, no, I'm just going to deliver you and get paid. Kind of like a Han Solo thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It took him a while to actually warm up on the princess and his story. And part of it was because he made a friend in Luke, right? Because a lot of people think it's because he fell in love with Leia that even started helping. But him falling in love with Leia happened after he became friends with Luke. Luke was actually the thing that warmed him up as a character, if you're paying attention to the story.
Yeah. And in my head, like, so there's kind of a division that's sent out to round up people in the town that are resisting, and they're called the Order of the Hands. That's kind of making fun of Antifa. Order of the Hands. Remember they always do that?
Oh, I thought it was making fun of the hand. You know, like from Marvel Comics. No.
Actually, that's kind of funny, but no. So I wanted an excuse to have Melvin kill Antifa members anyway.
Oh, do they walk around and do jazz hands and stuff all the time?
No, you know, because the idea is they're trying to get cops to do something on camera, so they can go like, "Oh, I didn't do anything."
Yeah, I just thought it'd be funny if they also did their jazz hands, because they also do that.
So I was gonna have them like terrorizing a town, and there's like most of the town people live like underground, kind of hidden from them.
Yeah.
But there are still people that live in the town that are trapped by them and terrorized by them. So I was thinking Melvin liberates the town and realizes maybe I should kind of stick around and help them fight this thing, right? Fight this cult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I was going to put in the second issue.
When you said Order of the Hands, like specifically when I was thinking about it too, was because the type of people you're making fun of are people who get easily triggered by stuff, right? So at first they weren't allowed to clap anymore when somebody does something, and they had to start snapping. But even snapping triggers some people. So Jazz Hands is like I can just imagine like the leader sacrificing like a whole group of people or whatever, and in celebration all the followers are doing Jazz Hands.
I'm gonna have to use that one.
Oh, feel free.
Like I have sacrificed a bunch of people, and somebody claps. You're like, who did that? It was Phil.
Yeah, Phil's the next on the chopping block for sacrifice.
Yep.
Yeah. You feel free to use that. And so the final question for this block, before we move into the next one, is: does this story have an end goal? Like, do you actually have a resolution that maybe 50 whatever books from now you're going to solve? Or is this kind of like one of those ones where it can have the problem will be persistent and you're always moving towards a goal you'll never reach because it's a continuous story?
I kind of feel like in this story arc, maybe the princess actually, because there's going to be I guess I'll just so her. I'll give you a spoiler.
Just more about like,
I have in mind.
Do you plan it or not?
For the third act.
Yeah.
For the third act, so they find out that at the end of the second issue that they put a tracking device on her. You'll find that out at the end of the first issue. They put a tracking device so they can find the hidden city because they know it's somewhere around on the planet. They just don't really know where. So, one of them actually survives and goes all the way to the head priest, the number one priest, because our Jonas, I think that's his name. He's the number two priest, so he's not even the guy. He's like the second guy in charge.
Okay.
And so they put a tracking device on her, and of course they find out. So they decide to go. They decide to go to where the cult is and attack them before the cult can mobilize and attack them. So the father sacrificed. He has a mech suit instead of armor. So he's got this mech suit. And so he sacrifices himself trying to hold open these giant doors. So at the end of the fourth issue, the princess has to grow up and actually take responsibility and actually be a leader.
Okay.
Melvin decides that there are things worth fighting for more than just a paycheck.
So you got some character growth right there already pre-planned within a reasonable amount of time. Like it might be that depending on how fast you get these projects a few years down the line, but people aren't going to have to be waiting their entire lives to see this character development.
No. Like I said, I have unlike some people, I have plans. I just haven't put them down on paper yet. Yeah.
Oh, just like some people in the audience, it's like if they get a promise and then they're like One Piece, for example, right? Where the promise at the very beginning of the story is that he's going to find the One Piece, right? So he can get the actual treasure and become the Pirate King and all that. And this very week, One Piece is reaching chapter 1000.
1,000?
Yeah.
Do they really need that many?
And because between hiatuses and how long the story, it's just like there are people who have literally waited their entire life up to now because of when they were born, waiting for him to get to the end, and it still hasn't been there. I think it was actually originally scheduled to end this last year, and they had to, I think, extend it because of COVID and stuff like that.
I haven't paid attention to One Piece since when they had that clown as a villain.
Oh man, that was a long time ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The moment they replaced the pistols with squirt guns, I'm like, dude, fuck this.
Oh, the 4 kid stuff.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I ain't reading this. This is
Sanji's cigarettes lollipop. There's some frames they forgot to get like all the smoke on. Like, why, mommy? Why is Sanji's lollipop smoking? But yeah, you know, some people they end up waiting forever for something. But it's sometimes nice to know that you're going to see character development and stuff like that within a feasible amount of time.
Yeah, 4 issues.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all. You know, if you're gonna do it, don't be like the Max and just have a continuous story throughout the whole thing. I love the Max, but still.
Yeah. The Max has really good episodic storytelling. I wouldn't say arcs are written very well. Like if you boil down to an individual
the arc just kind of seem to
issue, it's great.
Yeah. Well, you just fighting the same guy repeatedly. It's like, okay, was it Mr. Eep? Mr. Ip?
Oh, I forget, dude. It's been so long since I've read.
I used to have was it 1 through 5, and then I had 9 through something of the Max. And then I had the Friends of the Max. Yeah.
Well, that's what I like, and I recommend everybody do this eventually. Like, the big campaign is good for maximizing sales outright. But one thing I always hated was having to hope for a reprint or wait for an omnibus or something like that later on, and not being able to get into the stuff from the beginning or be able to catch the stuff I missed because everything's on a limited printing schedule. So I think like after maybe a year or two of a book being out past a crowdfunding after it's been fulfilled, people should really just go and make a print-on-demand version. It may not be as high of a quality, but that'd be the sacrifice that you get for entering the story late. But it still lets you start from the beginning, you know?
Well, that's what I've been thinking lately. It's like, okay, if let's say I finished this campaign, now what? So I was thinking I would like to be able to make a website and put it on there for people to continue to buy afterwards. I want to continue making that buck afterwards, you know? And then go on to the next campaign.
Yeah, and I do all my stuff print on demand, but that's also because I'm doing web first, so it's just if people want a physical copy of it. It's different than doing like a premium book right off the bat.
Have you signed up? You haven't been able to get to their was it that ad revenue thing?
Oh, no, I don't get ad revenue on my website. My website is entirely sponsored by donations or whatever money I put into it. Which, not this year. We were a little short this year to cover it, but last year was completely covered by donations.
No, Webtoons, if you have a certain
Webtoon. No, I don't have enough subscribers for that yet.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to. Actually, I think Omar is working on another installment of Deathcore. See, now Deathcore is a different beast, but like this, that one panel connects them to Melvin. Deathcore is about so Reapers are they're kind of like just common workers. They come in and say, okay, it's time to go here, sign here, and then but some ghosts don't want to go quietly, so they send in squadrons after them, like a squad after them. I mean, not squadron, squad.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. Kind of reminds me of
so it's kind of like
in that similar kind of vein. So it's pretty easy to attract an audience that might be into like Bleach, with their Soul Reapers, right? They're Shinigami. They go in there. There's the Hollows that don't want to pass on. They become violent ghosts, and they have to send people to go and take them out.
Yeah, or I was thinking like a mix between Ghostbusters and Bloodstrike.
Yeah, I could see that. But it'd be, one thing to do, because, there's nothing new under the sun, right?
No,
and if there was,
never.
There's no guarantee somebody would be interested, right? Like, most of the interesting things have been proven and tested. because you could do something completely new, but
Yeah.
then it doesn't resemble a story. And people are like, why would I want to? Why would I want to read that? So what you got to do is you find something that inspires you, create something original out of that, and also then try to look for the audience of that because you know they already like the thing.
Well, I kind of like to think of it this way: you can't make anything original, but you can make a gumbo, right? A little of this, a little of that, sprinkle of that, you know.
I don't even think you have to go full gumbo, right?
No, and then
You do take your ingredients, but you can make something that's simple yet seasoned differently. You know what I mean? Like a single ingredient dish, but prepared in a way that nobody ever saw before. It's like the fish fillet was around forever, but nobody thought about frying it until one day.
yeah, exactly. So I mean that's why people can take, like, let's say, the buckler and compare them to, like, the phantom or like I like to call them reverse tick.
Yeah.
You know, like the tick was a superhero and he was not so he was too strong, but he wasn't that bright.
Yeah, his
Buckler's
brains was
evil.
Arthur, who ran around with him.
Yeah, the buckler is evil and backstabby and not that bright.
Yeah. So let's
that's
roll into
I mean,
the third block, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
So
That's
the third
fine.
block is more
I got-
personal questions. They less to do with the story and more to do with you. Right. And
My
the
favorite
first one
subject.
I have set up for you is, what made you choose this medium of storytelling, comics? You said you always wanted to work in comics, so like, what drove you to do comic books, and what do comic books mean to you?
It was a way, as a kid, I was picked on a lot, so it was a way to vent my frustrations. And I got into comic books because my brother gave me first issue of X-Force. He hated it, but I loved it. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I think my teacher in it was middle school, or is it, no, it was actually kind of entering high school. I got caught drawing in class, and he took away my artwork, and he was disturbed by what he saw, so he was going to put it in my permanent file. I had to beg to get him back, and he said, "Okay, but I made copies and put them in your permanent file." Blah blah blah.
Disturbed, were you beheading people?
I don't remember. I think I actually, when I was a kid in fourth grade, I was writing. They were doing this thing where it was a compilation of stories and pictures from the class. So I did a story with G.I. Joe versus werewolves, and they wouldn't put it in there because it was, and I quote, "not appropriate for school."
The real question is, what is appropriate for school?
I don't know. I was kind of a misfit back in those days, so I don't know.
Yeah, because I've always been drawing comics myself as well. Like, probably since elementary school. I think I drew my first full 20-page comic book in the 3rd or 4th grade. I can't remember exactly. I think it was the 3rd grade. 4th grade, I was taught like a really simple method because you're not allowed to have your own stapler in class, so I couldn't just like fold pages and staple them. I'd have to like do that at home, and I would pass my finished book around the class, and other people would read it when they were done with their work. But in 4th grade, they taught a method where everybody had scissors in their bag, and you could like take half the pages and cut a small slit on both sides, and the other half and cut like a small box in the corner, and then fold it into the other, and you've got like this really easy to read loose leaf book. And I would just draw comics on that. Actually, one of the comics I'm drawing now is from back then. I'm like reworking it and updating the story so it doesn't suck because, God, 4th graders are so bad at writing. But I still like the story. It's like, I can improve this. I'm a much better writer now. And at least 4 or 5 of the issues of A Hymn of Valor are the original comic book that I had made back in elementary school. So usually with people, the passion tends to stem that far back.
Let's see. 90. Well, it had to have been 91 when I actually got X-Force for my brother. So. Sorry. Yeah. It was probably like 12. Wow. Time flies.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think I remember too, like, so my teachers never confiscated my drawings.
Yeah.
But they did give me questions. Like, I remember in middle school, one of the comics I was drawing, different story that I might eventually get back to. But it was a character who could control the weather, kind of, who wore a poncho. It was a really dumb name. It was just called The Poncho. I think the original name was Poncho Man, because kids are really bad at making names. And in the issue, he was fighting a giant squid with a drill on one of his tentacles. And the teacher's looking at us like, why is this dude on a cloud fighting a squid in the middle of a flood? Why would you make it flood? That would just help the squid.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by the end of the story, like, it looks like it's helping the squid, but then he freezes everything, and now the squid's trapped in ice. So there was a plan to it. Wasn't a great writer back then, but I did think about it.
Right.
But it's just like my teacher's questioning, like, why?
Yeah.
Why? That was always the questions I would get from my teachers. It wasn't like whether this was appropriate or not. It was just like, why?
You should say, why not?
That should always be the response, is why not? I mean, how many people have a villain where it's like a sentient, talking giant squid with a drill on one of its tentacles?
Yeah, why did it have a drill for a hand?
I don't even remember why I gave it a drill for a hand. I think I was just like 12, around the same time as a middle school story. It was just like, I was 11 or 12 and I thought it was cool.
What else do you need?
Yeah. It's like, because with squid, they have got those two longer arms that aren't like the tentacles like the other ones that have like the big pad at the end. So I just like cut off one of the pads and put a drill there.
So I suppose if the squid became reformed, he can just go, "Oh, you need help with that gate?"
Yeah.
Thank you, giant squid.
Well, apparently this has no problem moving or breathing on land, so I don't know if they'd want him going anywhere. I don't think he's ever going to reform. He's a giant squid.
He's like, "Oh, hey, you need ink for your ink pens?"
He's an apex predator.
Thanks. Giant squid, did you eat that kid going around the street? No. Like still kicking.
Yeah. So, because you're inspired by movies and stuff, would you be opposed, if successful, to expanding into other mediums in the future? And which ones interest you?
And if I got into animation, I would like to make an animated movie.
Ooh, that'd be good. Too many people want to do live action, and live action can be cool, but man, is live action done so poorly because they try to be too realistic. They don't want to be fantastic with these fantastic stories, right? Yeah.
The question is, it right for the character though?
Yeah.
Because I can see Melvin as an animated kind of like an anime kind of, like you're talking about like late '90s maybe, kind of like the kind of violence like Ninja Scroll or the kind of violence that was in Ghost in the Shell.
Well, I was going to say, that would be good, Ghost in the Shell. I would also think with the character type, like a Gendy type thing, like a Samurai Jack or a Primal would probably be a pretty
Just the
good
North
fit,
Star,
too.
maybe.
Yeah.
With guns, though.
With guns and actual. Well, Primal, because it was on Adult Swim, was allowed to be a lot more visceral than Jack was originally. So, like, a lot of the more of the blood and stuff like that.
No, I've seen Primal. Like, someone gets hit in the shoulder, they don't just get hit in the shoulder, their shoulder explodes.
Yeah. That's the advantage of
and
being
the idea
on the
that
adult block of the network.
And then, like, if I had the budget, get a soundtrack to play through certain scenes. I'm talking about like maybe like hardcore punk, or maybe a little bit of metal, or something, something kind of gritty.
Yeah, it does look like it should be a gritty world, and especially anything that has anything to do with space. Space should be gritty, right? Because space wants to kill you. If you go out there, everything in space wants you dead. I mean, everything on Earth kind of wants you dead too, but then space just kicks it up to 11. And I am so sick of all of these, like, mostly Disney's problem, clean and sterilized space movies. I like Alien, because Alien is a gritty movie, I like, a Pitch Black is a pretty gritty movie too. Space should want to kill you, and it should be as dirty as something that wants to kill you.
Riddick was actually a pretty cool character, I think.
Oh, I love Riddick.
Keep what you kill, or something, or whatever.
Well, that was the philosophy of the what was the Necromonger was the guy in charge. I can't remember the name of the
I think they were called the Necromongers. He was
Necropolis. Yeah, he became the Necromonger after he killed him. But I can't remember what their religion's name was.
I think they were called the Necromongers, weren't they?
Was it? I thought that was just the dude in charge. Maybe. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen the second one. I've seen Riddick a lot within the last, year, because it just keeps coming on TV.
Oh, the last one?
Yeah, which I didn't hate. It was so weirdly paced, because it was almost 3 episodes of a series that were spliced together, because there's the 3 different parts. There's him getting abandoned, and then the whole little sequence of him getting the dog and adapting to the world was kind of one part. Then there was the part where he was actually dealing with the bounty hunters who came down, and then there was the part where they have to try to escape the planet that is kind of like recycling Pitch Black in that way. Even the fact that the dude who's chasing him is the father of the guy who was chasing him in Pitch Black, was John's. And it's a 3-act story, but they don't feel like they're 3 acts of the same story almost. It almost feels like you caught 3 episodes of a series that were clipped together into one movie. I still enjoy it.
Yeah. I just liked how the only thing I really liked most was they explained what happened to him. Why is he no longer in charge of the Necromongers?
Yeah.
They explained that, so you don't wonder, wait, what happened? No.
Yeah.
It's not like it wasn't
Carl
like a
Urban
soft
betrayed
movie.
him as you expected he was going to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, what was that character's name? Vezik or something like that? Man, it's been so long since I've seen the second one.
Well, his chick talked him into it too.
Oh yeah. Oh, that dude was totally whipped.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
But I think I would have the same opinion. I favor the idea of doing something animated because, especially animation, instantly brings you into the world of the fantastic, right? You could do things in animation that you could never really do in live action, that you can kind of now, but most things just aren't getting into it. Some of the anime adaptations of live action are actually using it properly, but a lot of stuff we do here in the West is just let's make it realistic and boring.
Yeah, because people ask too many questions. That's why everything has to be explained to them. It's well, use your imagination.
Yeah.
I mean, there's explaining, and then there's explaining everything down to the little rocks in the dirt.
There's explaining, and then there's midichlorians.
Yeah.
which I actually don't dislike. I would have no problem if
Yeah.
he left them out of the movie for the sake of the wider audience, and I just caught that in some other like byproduct he made. But I kind of sympathize with people like that's explaining things too much. That was no need to put that in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of thought, well, what if there's two kind of philosophies on the Force? Like, there's like a more scientific a faction that views it more scientifically, and then there's a more spiritual faction
Yeah.
a faction that views it more spiritual. I don't know.
Yeah. So, we kind of already talked into this because I asked you a different question earlier, and I think you were starting to talk about this instead. But what are your biggest influences or inspirations as a person? Like, who do you look up to the most?
As a person,
Yeah, as an individual, it could be anybody. Like, could have been your own parents, a
You mean
family member, a
I mean,
historical figure.
I would have to say Henry Rollins.
Okay, you'd like to explain why?
That guy. Why? Because he doesn't make apologies for who he is. He just is who he is.
Okay, it's a pretty fair reason.
Yeah, he doesn't make excuse. He doesn't he doesn't make excuses for anybody. This is who he is. I mean, you just get that from the kind of vibe he gives out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those tend to be the people that I looked up to growing up, were people that are just kind of like, I guess, against the grain would probably be the definition I would use for it. Like, they don't really care how everybody else cuts, they're just going their own way.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of feel that this modern society has become more about collectivism instead of being an individual.
Well, I hate to break it to you, that's all of history, right? Because there's an evolutionary advantage to fitting in with the herd. But all the greatest things
Right.
happen from the people
Seems
who break from it.
Right. Well, my point is, it seems to be more. It seems to be more encouraged now. And then if you're an individual, then they have to cancel you.
Yeah. I think it's because the world
Yeah.
goes into cycles. Because you see this a lot, right? There were witch hunts at certain periods. You've had inquisitions throughout history. And it kind of just... Especially here in the United States, we lived in a very special experiment where breaking free from a empire that was kind of like taking over everything, but still kind of letting the countries operate the way they did as long as they paid their taxes and stuff like that to the crown. Use this kind of British common law and Enlightenment thinking and took it to its inevitable conclusion to make a society of individuals, right? And that's a rare thing for history. You don't actually get that throughout most of history when you read it. There's some pockets here and there. You've got individuals that have made marks and stains on history that kind of like reverb to the modern day. But we're in a unique experiment that it almost feels like it's collapsing on itself because people are just kind of reverting back to the way most of history was.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting to see the left and the right kind of flip roles, and the right is becoming more like the left, and the left is becoming more like the right.
Yeah, well, so I always had this theory, and I actually wrote an article on it like a few years back on my my other blog that's more for like philosophy and science and stuff. And it was how I think it kind of lines up more with the political compass, but I think the whole left-right dynamic is kind of wrong, and people are looking at it wrong, and even the not so much the authoritarian libertarian part, that part's kind of right, and it's more of new versus old, which you kind of get with the conservative progressive, but it's not quite the same, right? It's new versus old and order versus chaos, and normally you don't quite get much of them. They're usually the opposite corners if things are tugging properly. And the problem is if they're adjacent to each other, right? So if you have like New Order versus Old Chaos, which you could say Old Chaos would be right libertarian if you want to try to map it to the same thing. Then you get a proper tug where people kind of meet healthily in the middle. Or if you get Old Order versus New Chaos, you kind of also get a little tug where people meet in the middle. Right now we've got a problem where most of society wants to sit somewhere in between on the chaos side or the liberty side of things, but everybody in charge is like on the new and old order side of stuff. So because they're the power, they're just kind of pulling the rest of society up into the order, and we're all suffering because of it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my parents are very pro-Democrat, so my dad swears that the MSNBC is the gospel, and I'll bring up stuff. He goes, "No, that didn't happen." I'm like, "I just saw footage of that happening." "Oh, well, that was probably faked because it wasn't on MSNBC, so therefore it has to be a lot."
All of legacy media is just trash at this point. They have been for years, right? Like some people are only now catching up because you're seeing like alternative news sources completely bypassing in numbers of the legacy. But man, like I stopped watching legacy media maybe back in 2008, right? And especially for news in general.
Yeah.
I think since like 2011 or 12, I only get my news sources online, and even then you have to keep constantly double checking too, because there are online sources just as bad as the legacy. But with the online source, you actually have a flip of a coin whether it's going to be good or not. With the legacy, you almost know it's going to be bad.
Well, I've been listening to stuff like Steven Crowder. I kind of sometimes still catch Rebel media. But most of it's like that whole thing that happened in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I saw actual clips of that, and my dad's like, "Oh, that didn't happen. He went there to shoot people." Like, "Oh no, he went there."
Talking about the Kenosha shooting, right?
And give aid, and he's like, "Oh, that didn't." He didn't like travel miles from somewhere. He drove 15 minutes from where he lived. He lived 15 minutes away.
Oh yeah, no, that was the closest major city, and I think he actually even worked in the area.
Yeah. But no, my dad said, "Well, I saw footage of the guy go after him after he put out a dumpster fire."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, that was probably fake." Yeah.
I do feel though, like even if you're on the you're getting newer media, right? Is you can't just look at the one side. I get my news from all over the place, right? I like to double check it against different opinions and stuff. Because, the internet is just as biased as the legacy media was. But you have more options, and it's easier to find the truth. Because you can look.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I just... I want to say this: the footage where those three guys are after him, even though he was panicking, his shots were dead on.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even nice grouping because he only had to take one shot for each person. It was all just precision, just.
Yeah, but even though he's freaking out, he's just like pop, pop, pop. It's like, dude, you just got the triple high score.
Yeah, he didn't accidentally hit any bystanders. He only actually had to take out the one. It was just like easy.
Yeah.
Completely disarming the guy in a literal sense.
He blew off the guy's bicep. I saw that. Like, dude, that's nasty. He's like, medic. He's like, I was like, oh shit. But the guy who he killed, he stopped. He did this. He backed away, and then he charged out. Then he lunged after the guy, and then the guy just went pop.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well, my problem is that
lunge after the guy.
Things like that shouldn't become such a partisan thing, right? Because people can't even meet in the middle of where it makes sense when you look at it. Like, no, that dude was totally in self-defense, but at the same time, he was stupid for even being there in the first place. It's like, that's a rational opinion to have of the situation.
Yeah, well, rational person would also say nobody should have been there because they had a curfew.
Yeah, exactly. None of them should have been there.
Well, the first guy he shot him like 3 times, but he was like he was like a scumbag. He used to beat up women.
Yeah. It's like
Why would you
it's
feel
sad
sorry
to
about
hear about almost anyone dying, but at the same time, I'm not going to feel any pity for any of the people that got shot.
Well, they were all. My dad was like, "Well, he killed somebody." He goes, "The dude was a scumbag." Are you kidding me?
Like everyone, if
But,
they want to, should have the chance to turn around and change who they were. But clearly, that guy chose not to.
they were gonna. They were setting a dumpster on fire and gonna push it into
I
a bunch
know.
of cop cars. That's not.
I know,
How's that
man.
gonna help anything?
It's not.
Yeah.
So let's see where we were. Oh, well, actually, I think this probably has to come to the same question, and it's probably going to keep us on the topic we were on. If you could change anything about the world, what would it be?
Bring back reasoning and being or at least let's all agree to disagree and somehow still be okay with each other.
So civility.
Like yes, like one of my coworkers. He's a cool guy. I respect him. We both like that show, Letterkenny.
Oh, Letterkenny.
But he's like he's like oh dude.
Yeah.
But he's a lefty. He's a straight up lefty. I disagree with him on things, especially like the whole toxic masculinity thing. It's like, so you should be ashamed to be a man. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's one of those really dumb ones, because that's a Mott and Bailey. A lot of these things, there's those classic Mott and Bailey techniques where, you know what a Mott and Bailey is, right? Historically, it's a type of fort that's designed.
I've never heard of that.
Old-fashioned castle from medieval Europe. Early on, it was wooden castles, and then a lot of them left around. There were far more wooden castles than stone, but wooden castles don't stay up. Especially because some of them were designed to be disassembled and moved. And what you would do is you'd find like a hill. You would build the castle on top of the hill. You would build a wall around the entire fort with like smaller barracks and defensive structures at the bottom. And then maybe put a moat or something around that. And this would be your entire defensive keep. The Bailey is kind of like the little army encampment town at the bottom of the fort. And the Mott is the higher defensive castle structure at the top, right? So if people come to attack, you leave them to fight in the Bailey as you retreat to the higher defensive structure, and after their numbers are lower, you swarm back out. It's a very good tactic for defense when you weren't wanting to be in battle yourself, but the battle comes to you. And this is what they do with a lot of their words, is they'll have a term that has two definitions. The Mott,
Right.
the vulnerable definition that you have to retreat to so you don't lose, is the actual definition that they
Right.
need. The Bailey, where the battle happens, will be the more acceptable version of it, right? So when you have toxic masculinity, the Mott and Bailey switches, they'll mean all masculinity, but when they argue, it'll be like, oh, we only mean the bad things, right? And they'll define them as like things that everybody agrees are bad. Like if somebody's temper gets out of control and they hit somebody for no reason, that's what we mean. We don't mean all of it. We just mean this. And then after they win that battle, they'll come back out of the keep with the actual definition. Because by you agreeing with that, they'll say that you're what's it called? Forfeiting to the main definition that they actually believe in. That's the Mott and Bailey switch.
Yeah, you admit that you're. Yeah. Right.
And everyone does this, by the way. It only got a name recently, but it's been going on for a long time between any group that's trying to get power.
Yeah. Well, we can agree that's sort of what they really want, is to be able to tell people what to do with their lives.
Oh, yeah.
What they want to do.
These are all power games. They even admit it, too. Like, if you go back, they're all derivatives of Marx, right? If you actually look at Marx's philosophy, you can boil it down to power politics. That's all it was. Because economically, it doesn't work at all. He was not an economist, and it was based off of false pretenses. But he understood power politics very well. Almost as well as Machiavelli did.
Yeah, well, we all know Marxism is a little crap.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah, if you really want to get good at power politics, you should read Machiavelli. That you'll learn a lot more from that. But maybe on a lighter subject, or it might not be lighter, it depends what you think of yourself. If there is one thing you could change about yourself, what would it be?
I would say not let what people say get to me. I don't know why. It's just sometimes, I'm okay with most things. I'm like, whatever. But sometimes that's little things that kind of just,
Get under your skin.
Or I think I said something wrong and I didn't intentionally mean to offend somebody. Like, damn it, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, see, I just don't care if I offend people. Maybe if somebody's close to me, I might. There's been times where I have, reached out to somebody because I wasn't sure. But that only matters if I've already started liking the person. If I don't really know, it's like, I don't care. I don't give a shit.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Besides that, yeah. Like I said, there's certain there's certain things I hate about my face, mainly the eyes, the heavy eyelids. Beginning to really hate that. But besides that, I'm okay.
Well, I don't know if you've ever seen somebody without eyelids, but it's probably better to have heavy than none.
Well, nothing's more annoying than cops swearing up and down that you're high, and then them waiting 20 minutes to get the apartment so you can blow 0.00.
I've had insomnia since elementary school. I think I've actually maybe even longer than that, so just nocturnal. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I could fix my own schedule that things were working properly. But all throughout school, having to be on that school schedule, teachers and stuff would ask me if I did drugs and stuff. Actually, when I went to a new school for my final year, my senior year, I didn't know anybody, so I was by myself. I would have my head down at the beginning of school, before the bell rang, and somebody actually came by and gave me a pamphlet for drug use. And just kind of slipped it in there. I'm like, dude, I don't do drugs. I just don't get any sleep at night.
So how would you overcome that? Would you sleep during the day, during lunch or something?
No, just throughout most of my childhood, I would get an average 2 to 4 hours of sleep every night. I was never able to nap, really. After the age of 5, I stopped napping.
Oh, wow. How did you survive your childhood?
I don't know.
I'm just saying that they say that if you deprive yourself of sleep, it's almost like being simulated being drunk.
Dude, I have gone multiple times of 3 days without sleep at all. Mostly during conventions, but I remember one weekend I went 76 hours because it was a 4-day weekend. And thank God it was a 4-day weekend. Because the 76 hours started Thursday evening. I went over to a friend's house for the 4-day weekend. After the time was up, I went home instead of staying the rest of the weekend, and then crashed for 18 hours straight.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I remember hearing
got caught up.
Around hour 73-ish, I would say, I remember auditory hallucinations. Only time I ever had them was right there.
Dude. What did you think you saw?
No, auditory, so hearing.
Oh, you thought you heard stuff.
I was hearing music playing when no music was playing. Things like Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff was just going on, and it wasn't like hearing a song in your head. It was like having headphones on.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
should have caught that word auditory. I was like, oh, he said auditory.
yeah. Not visual.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Getting easily annoyed about things. Like sometimes I'll fly off the handle at people. Sometimes
Yeah,
I really hate it when I do that. Yeah.
I think I've seen that once or twice.
You think so?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we've pestered you a little bit, hazing and stuff. With everybody who comes into the community.
Oh well, all I had to do was remember. See, my best friend was kind of like Dillard in the fact that he would always talk shit.
Yeah.
And when I thought about that, I was like, I know this game because like back in the day, I'd go over to my best friend's house and it was just an all day shit talking fest. It was basically who could out shit talk who.
Yeah.
And he'd say stuff like he'd call me the metronome because I'd walk like this, right?
Yeah.
And then I knew he game, so I'd tell him. Well, I'd play a was a Stephen Lynch song called D&D. You've heard of Stephen Lynch, right?
Yeah.
He hated that. So it was basically just a shit talking fest. So I was like, once I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, I know what this is.
Okay. Where do you see yourself a few years down the line?
Hopefully, having a career in comics.
Yeah, that's a simple
I figure
answer.
I figure if I put in the time I hustle enough that maybe I'll make a name for myself.
Hey man, it's a lot of effort.
If I can make almost $60 a week on the street selling drawings, I can definitely do this.
Man, I've been there.
So I get up at 7, and I'd have a stack of paper I've gathered, and I draw. I'd use I had a tablet, so I'd find a Wi-Fi source, and like Pokemon was that thing that year, so I just drew a bunch of Pokemon, and I'd hit the waterfront because everyone was playing Pokemon Go there and make like
Yeah.
some money. And do that for maybe like almost a week, and then when the money kind of like slowed down, right? I'd move on to the next town and do it there.
Hey man, you gotta make any buck you can.
Yeah. Here's the thing I'd do. I'd go to if I found like a store, I'd check the sign for no solicitation. If it doesn't say no solicitation, I'd go in and see if they wanted to buy one. And if they can say, well, you can't sell here, I go, hey, there was no sign that said no solicitation, but okay.
Yeah. Because at that point, if they say that, that's no trespassing. They are the lot.
Yeah.
They could kick you off. They just need to give you a warning
Yeah,
ahead
so
of
I
time,
said-
so you can't be punished until they say anything.
Yeah. So I cooperate. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that and not come back. But if I make $10, I can always go and take a lunch break at Mickey D and get stuff off the dollar menu.
Yeah, man, dude,
Take
that
the weekend.
dollar
I still
menu's
take
great when you got nothing.
Yeah. I tell you, I still take the weekends off though, so I wouldn't work Saturdays and Sundays though.
So here we go. This is the fourth and possibly final block because I think we have we got over the hour? Yeah, we have. We're like hour and 20 something minutes now. So you're no longer under obligation to be here, but we should probably finish the final block anyway.
All right.
Okay, and this is what I call defining questions. They don't have to be answered long. They can be short, simple if you want, but you do have to come up with an answer. I will force you to. The first one: Marvel or DC?
Image.
That's fair. That is fair. I kind of figured you were going to say that from your answers earlier. Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
Okay. Would you rather have a vacation at a beach or a ski resort?
Beach.
Beach, alright. It tells a lot about the type of person you are. Which probably will give the similar answer.
Okay.
Ice skating or roller skating?
Roller skating.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. Those two kind of almost go hand in hand, right?
I was gonna say, what are you trying to say?
I'm just saying, like, there's usually a lot of, chicks barely dressed on the boardwalk roller skating.
Okay.
Would you rather go to space or the bottom of the ocean?
Bottom of the ocean.
What's your favorite band?
Misfits. I know you hate them, but
I don't hate them. I'm just not super into him. I thought, his work was better solo than when he was with the Misfits.
I'm just saying they don't come off as preachy
No, they don't.
because it's just about horror and sci-fi movies. If you like horror and you like sci-fi, why not?
Yeah. And they definitely have that, like, it's hard to use this word for older bands because there's a genre named after it now, but for the time it's kind of got like that grungy feel to it.
Right.
Yeah. But you can't really use grungy anymore because there's a genre called grunge.
Grunge actually started in the 1980s,
Yeah, I know.
but yeah, how many people know that?
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, so many to choose from. So many.
But you have to make a choice.
Yes. What movie? Because it actually caused me to go look for the book and read it. Disney kind of does stuff right once in a while, even though they didn't really stick with the book.
Huh?
That's about it.
No. Well, the next one might be the same. Your favorite book?
Oh. Well, right now my favorite book is this.
Could you say it since this is an audio primary?
Oh, right. Right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Ultimate Collection, Volume 1.
Okay. Your favorite game of any type? Video, board, doesn't matter.
My favorite
Sport.
let's
What's your
see.
favorite game?
Mortal Kombat.
The original?
First Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
a good game. Favorite season?
That kind of kicked it off for me. Favorite season? Summer.
Summer? Okay. I would have accepted a spice as well. It was a very open question, whatever direction you took it. Flavor of soup.
Oh, I'm gonna go bean bacon soup.
Okay. It's not a common choice over here, but that's a good one. And the final question. How many miles would you be willing to walk for $300? Like, I'll even set it up. Let's say you're in the middle of the woods, or you're at the start of the woods, so you can't take a car or anything else to get there. Somebody places this money this distance away from you in the woods, and you have to hike. What is the maximum distance you'd be willing to hike to still get that $300?
20.
Okay.
Good 20-mile hike.
Yeah, 20 miles. Walking 20 miles for 300. Like I said, these are questions that say a lot about who you are as an individual. They break down your character and define you.
I'm interested to hear the results.
Well, only the audience
kind of
can
character
judge. It's not my job.
Oh. I'm just going to imagine that they all like me. The end.
Okay. Whatever floats your boat. Or, I guess, propels your spaceship. Whatever metaphor you like. And that's about it.
Okay.
Usually the last block is just shooting the shit for a little while, which you're still welcome to if you want, but you're no obligation to still be here.
All right. Usually this is usually the part where they stop stream and then we talk a little bit. But
oh no, this is still going to be recorded. It's a block of the show, so
cool. Okay.
or you could just wrap up and we can direct people to your projects. It's up to you.
There's a certain vibe, like, oh, all right, we cut stream, and like, ah.
Oh no, we're still on.
Yeah. So you still got to be that character, you put on your game face, for the.
I never take mine off.
No. Like peel it off, like.
No, it just stays on.
Just stays on. No.
Yeah, nobody else gets to see what's behind it. It's just for me.
Yeah. All right. So I suppose you got. I think I got Saturday off again because I work Monday through Friday. So.
Okay.
I'll be able to catch up
for
on
those
the
listening.
RPG.
Timothy is in the Final Fantasy RPG that I've been DMing on Saturdays. That's what we're talking about now.
I'm far behind on stealing stuff from people.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't roll so badly that I'll trip over and put myself in a coma again.
You should really... Yeah, I like that you used it on the golem last time, because the primary thing that skill is for stealing from enemies.
Yeah, I just thought, what are the odds that I'd roll so badly against something so weak?
Yeah.
It's just... So...
You got a very valuable thing out of that steal, too. You got an earth drum.
Oh, that. Yeah, that was... Yeah. I was talking about, like, that
when you crit
goblin
and nearly killed yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what are the odds of that happening?
Yeah. Man, well, I mean, the odds are... I think you rolled 100 on it, so 1 in 100. Now, the odds of critically failing is, like, 1 in 20, I think, because it's, like, 5 in 100, but...
Well, I didn't think, okay, I'm going to roll this here, and then I'll miss and nearly kill myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, son of a bitch.
Well, you're also just lucky that I asked if you had bothered to raise your health every time that you leveled, because otherwise you would have been dead.
Yeah. So many things to remember, especially when you don't play role-playing games every day and I've been out for a few weeks.
Yeah. I just figured maybe you would have picked up on it too, because everybody else had been asking about rolling their hit die and what they needed to add to their health and stuff. And then I'm like, I don't remember Timothy asking at all.
Yeah. I'll be more aware of that in the future.
What could also help is you could do a little bit of homework, because I've noticed maybe the only person that's remotely done this is possibly Flit, but you could read the rulebook.
I was thinking about that, like maybe I could find out if I need to add stuff. Maybe there's some skills I could pick up since I'm now level 4.
And just understanding the rules in general, like what you do, what your friends do and stuff, it just helps you plan for the game better. I remember right before I played 5th edition, when my brother was running a campaign. It had been a long time since did anything with 5th edition, which I only ever did once before that. And that was like a single session. Mostly it's 3.5 is what I used to play, right? So I read through the whole 5th edition handbook before we played. So I was familiar with it. Even though I wasn't the one running at that time, I was just a player.
Yeah, I do have that. I do have that PDF on my laptop. So I was thinking about skimming through that, because I mean I'm like level 4, and I'm sure once a thief gets to level 4, there's something you should be able to pick up.
I don't know. I could check. I have it on my computer, but I also have the PDF if it'll load up on my phone. Oh, but it crashed.
Oh, so handy.
There we go. Yeah, I have it on my phone, and I could go and look up anything at a moment's notice. I normally just don't use it on my phone because my calculator, like I have a TI-84 calculator on my phone as well, and that's what I'm using for everything real quick. Let's see, what is jobs? Warrior jobs. No. Expert jobs, 74. So if I just jump to page... It actually will be 74. It'll probably be like 80 because you have to add like 6 pages due to the table of contents and stuff like that. Yeah, here we go. Expert jobs. Boo-doo-doo. Chemist. Explorer. Gambler. It's so sad nobody picked up Gambler. That's such a fun job. Mime. Also a good job. Thief. Your next ability, like most warrior jobs, is at level 8.
Okay, so I don't have anything until level 8 then. That's
Yeah.
levels.
Just the normal skill points and stuff like that.
Well, I better read up on that then.
Yeah.
That should be a fun read.
I know. I think I'm also just... This comes to my mind naturally because I'm the type of guy who likes doing research. I don't know why I'm weird. I just spend half my time, if I'm not working on something, just researching things that catch my interest.
You a documentary kind of guy?
Yes, I am.
Well, and I don't think you're you probably don't like punk music, but
I like punk music.
okay.
I had like a very, very drastically wide range of music of almost every genre. My thing is, I kind of have like that Louis Armstrong opinion of music, right? That there's 2 types of music. And he played the good kind. I have a very refined taste, so I like the good kind.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting documentary about South African punk during the late 70s all the way to the mid 90s that I keep watching, and I think it's fascinating.
Well, that sounds fun.
I mean, we talk about
African punk.
Well, I mean, South African punk.
Yeah.
They, when they do punk rock, it's almost ska music, pretty much.
Oh, I really like ska music as well.
Or it's almost kind of that. It's not
like it evolved from reggae.
Except for maybe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see what other cultures do with an American art form, which, if you know the history of punk, it started from Detroit with Iggy Pop and MC5. And,
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting twists on punk culture and stuff